What is going on, folks? Man, I appreciate you for clicking on this video. We're going to talk about Acolyte Episode 4. And you know what? I know a lot of people feel that Episode 3 was the one that ended Star Wars and feel that that was the worst episode that we've gotten of the series so far. I gotta be honest, I think it might be this one. Talking about this episode, I do think that this one was the worst one of the whole 4 episodes that we've gotten so far. And even though a lot of people feel like it was a third one, I at very least feel that the third episode contributed to at least the story that was being told. This episode, episode 4, just felt empty with no goal to push the narrative, and I feel like we walked away with the same amount of knowledge that we had previously going into it. As balanced as I try to be while watching some of these projects, there's really not much positive that I could really say about this episode. I feel like the dialogue was corny. The acting itself was way worse in this episode than I feel like the first 2 episodes, which was really weird. Like Amanda Stenberg's performance, I thought drastically dropped in her portrayal of Osha. It was almost like the actors were bored while filming this episode, and I think for good reason, because I do think that this episode was pretty boring. I did somewhat enjoy Amanda Stenberg's performance as May, until she did the flip, and then I felt like it just kind of went downhill from there, which was another thing that really just confused me. May's turn to good was just so sudden and so random. I don't even really think that we got any inclination that she was teetering. So when the turn actually happened, that shit didn't make sense at all to me. You got this girl who tried to kill her twin sister as a kid, mad as all hell that her sister wanted to leave and go and be a Jedi. And not to mention that Osha shot at her in the second episode, and that looked like it even pissed her off even more. So when this turn happened, all of a sudden, because Osha is alive and now it changes everything, May's gonna turn herself into the Jedi after you just killed 2 of them. It really threw a wrench in the arc that I thought was going for May, and it didn't make sense to me. Character wise, I think Yord is still kind of a dick. He's supposed to be childhood friends with Osha, and he still just kind of treats her with a cold shoulder. I'm still not really digging his character like at all. Now I know that there's a lot of discourse online surrounding Ki-Adi Mundi's appearance in this episode. The fight to defend Legends versus Canon and that whole debate, I think is kind of pointless. Even though I really enjoyed the Legend stuff, I do wish that they brought most of that into canon. It's very clear that they're not going in that direction. So while I don't feel that this particular scene or this appearance breaks any type of canon, because at the moment that they go in to meet the rest of the Jedi and Ki-Adi Mundi's there, not one time is there mention of a Sith. They just kind of allude to May's master and trying to figure out who that was. At very least, they kind of think that it might be a rogue Jedi.
She turns up all these years later, trained by one of our own. You think a Jedi taught her? Even a hologram can tell me that.
I do, however, feel that that could switch pretty quick, because if we get into these next episodes and they have decided that this person that they encounter is a Sith, or at least they think that it's a Sith, that could lead into the canon breaking of Phantom Menace.
My only conclusion can be that it was a Sith Lord.
Impossible. The Sith have been extinct for a millennium.
Or at least maybe change the context of that scene in episode 1, because that would potentially mean that Ki-Adi Mundi and maybe the rest of the High Council kept this secret from the Jedi so that nobody else would really know, which is also kind of weird because I don't feel like the Jedi would keep that kind of a secret from its own people. Why would any Jedi keep that secret? So that is pushing the boundary once again, but at least for right now, it stays intact. They don't know that it's a Sith, or maybe he's not a Sith, which is a whole other thing. Another character that I'm not quite fond of, and I wasn't sure about it in the second episode, but definitely in this one, is Kimir. I don't even know if I pronounced that right. I don't like his character. He's kind of this sarcastic, kiss-ass, soft character. I just don't like the way that he's portrayed, and I can't even figure out what his purpose in all of this is. He's given information to May, of course, but he's connected with the Master and seems to know a little bit more about him than May does, but I just don't find him intriguing at all. And another thing is, I know that we have come to liken Soul to Qui-Gon as far as his approach and things, and maybe his own personal ideologies when it comes to attachments and what have you. But is it me, or does it seem like he's leaning a little too hard on his attachments? I found it really weird that in the previous episode, he was kind of telling Osha in so many words to move on because this is not going to be your family anymore. when you get to the Jedi Temple, that's your family, and you'll have a whole new family. And then in this episode, he makes a very strong argument to bring in Osha on this mission because May is her family. And that could just be because Osha is no longer a Jedi, so she's not bound to these ideologies and beliefs that the rest of the Jedi hold. And so maybe he's using that, because obviously he's using her as bait in a way. So maybe he's kind of using this family argument as a way to push her into doing this mission for him. But it just felt very overly done in this episode, and it was kind of weird. I still like Soul, and I think he is maybe the heart of this show, but it just felt a little forced in this episode. It was heavily leaning on this attachment. And lastly, I think the worst thing about this episode that absolutely drove me nuts and pissed me off was we got this whole hype in the marketing for this show about how there was going to be a Wookie Jedi. We've never seen that in live action, and it actually got me excited to see. I thought it was going to be a awesome fighting sequence, and I was really excited to at very least see Kelnaka do his thing and see how this was going to come together and see him get down. I wanted to see Kelnaka get down and fight, damn it. And then we get into the series and we have 1, 2, 3 second clip of teasing him in the second episode, and then we get a couple little growls here and there from him in the third episode, and then we get to this episode, the fourth episode, and he dies off screen. And I think that's the weakest crap you could have did. You hyped up this whole show, Leslie. You hyped up this Wookie Jedi, saying how that was something that you wanted to explore, and we get an off-screen death, and Kelnaka's just sitting up in the chair all caked up. Like, I thought that pissed me off. That pissed me off. So like I said, there's not much positive in this episode I think I can draw from. If I had to try and maybe pull out one or two, then maybe the scene where the Jedi all ignite their lightsabers in the face of the red lightsaber dude, and then maybe the general look of this Sith guy, I thought was kind of cool. But if I can nitpick a little bit, his reveal was kind of interesting too. You know, when the Jedi are standing in line, Osha is directly in front of them. When they turn around and look at the Sith guy, Osha is directly in front of him. So I thought it was kind of funny when he force pushes her and the Jedi charge and he just snaps his head back. Like, they were right in front of you. So why was he snapping his head back? It just felt like a dramatic scene that didn't need to be there. But whatever. Now, there are theories going around about who this Sith guy might be, and a lot of people think that it is Khmer, which I guess would make sense, because how else do you explain Kelnaka dying before May could even get to him? It kind of seems like he heard her do the switch, want to turn good and turn herself into the Jedi, and wanted to beat her to the punch, you know? So I guess that's possible, but I also kind of feel like the figure was very ladylike, which maybe goes into some theories that it's Coral, the Zabrak mother of May and Osha, which I guess don't let it be her. I think that they are taking their sweet time getting into the Sith aspect of what this show is. Another thing that was marketed so heavy about this show was the fact that it would be from the perspective of the Sith. That was something that Leslie said she wanted to kind of dive into and tell that perspective and point of view. And we haven't gotten that at all. We don't even really know if this guy is a Sith or just some dark side force user. The red lightsaber is, I guess, kind of telling, because they are the only ones who use the red lightsaber. But then again, we did have Marok in Ahsoka, and he just turned out to be a fart bubble. So, and I think that if we don't hurry up and dive into this, which we may get into the next episode, but that'll be the 5th episode in the 8-episode series, and I think that that's really late. So this episode was a big drop. I think in terms of at least its storytelling, I think that this episode was a huge downgrade. And also in terms of performances, I don't know what it was about this episode, because at least in the first 2 episodes, I really did enjoy Mandela Stenberg's performance of both characters. And it just felt like even that charming, charismatic way that she was playing Osha wasn't really there in this episode. So I think the thing that probably has most of my intrigue now is the Sith guy, and just wondering what his deal is about, or her deal is about. But we'll have to find out. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought about episode 4. If you agree with the way that I thought about it. If you don't, make sure to go down and hit that like button. If you did enjoy the video, helps out the channel and I appreciate it quite a bit, so thank you. And make sure to subscribe to the channel so that you're updated every time I post a video. Make sure you stay tuned in. Thank you for stopping by and listening to my thoughts on Acolyte episode 4. And as I'm always telling y'all, stay geeked up.